Hey there, and welcome. Look, if you're a parent, you totally know the feeling I'm talking about. That moment of just pure frustration when you need your kid to listen, like right now, and the words that pop out of your mouth are, well, not exactly your proudest moment. Today, we're going to get into one of the most common and honestly least effective habits we all fall into.
Yeah, sound familiar? It's that classic go-to phrase when you're just at the end of your rope, desperate to get out the door. Come on, let's be honest. We've all been there.
Or how about this one, right? Using grandma's feelings as leverage to try and get a kid to change their behavior. It's a classic.
And yep, the classic public meltdown threat. You can just feel the desperation in that one, can't you? So these are the kinds of things we say, but here's the real question we need to dig into. Does any of this actually work? And maybe even more important, what is it really teaching our kids in the long run?
Okay, so let's get right into it. And first things first, let me be super clear. If you do this, it does not make you a bad parent. Not at all. Think of this threat-based approach as like a genetic mutation of parenting. It just gets passed down. Chances are you probably heard stuff like this yourself as a kid. So it's no surprise that in a moment of total helplessness or frustration, this is the strategy your brain just defaults to. It's almost automatic.
So to really get why this strategy just falls flat, we've got to shift our focus. Let's move away from our own frustration for a minute and take a look at what's actually going on inside our child's brain.
I mean, this is the question, right? Why can't they just listen? It feels so much like defiance. It feels personal, like they're doing it to you. You ask them to stop, and they just keep going. So what is happening?
Well, the short answer is they literally can't. See, when a kid is in that state, racing around, totally zoned in on something, seeming to ignore you completely, they are not operating from their logical brain. They are on what our source material brilliantly calls the dopamine-adrenaline carousel. Their brain is just flooded with all these feel-good, high-energy chemicals. They've basically lost the connection to the part of their brain that handles things like, listening to requests and thinking about consequences.
And this right here is so important. It's the huge disconnect between what we see and what's really happening. So what you and I might see as pure defiance, that's actually just their immature brain riding what's called an ascending wave of stimulation. You know that feeling, he's laughing at my face? Well, that's really just an intense physical reaction because their whole system is completely overwhelmed. They are not choosing to ignore you. They literally can't process what you're saying.
So here's the absolute crucial takeaway. When we throw out a threat, we are not teaching them how to get off that carousel. We're not. We're just trying to scare them off it. And that doesn't build the skills they actually need for self-regulation down the road. All it does is dump a big pile of fear onto a brain that is already completely overloaded and spinning out of control.
And believe me, using fear as your main tool for setting boundaries, well, it has some pretty serious long-term costs. It's a strategy that really is a dead-end street.
So this is exactly why this whole approach is just not sustainable. Here's how it plays out. Step 1, you use a threat, and maybe, just maybe, it works. But then, step 2, over time, that threat starts to lose its power. It's like a drug, you have to up the dose. Which brings us to step 3. You have to use a bigger, scarier threat. You find yourself shouting louder, inventing more and more dramatic consequences. And eventually, you get to that place where so many parents find themselves, saying, nothing works on my kid anymore. And you know what? Of course it doesn't. Threats always lose their power.
But the scariest part isn't even that the threats stop working. It's what they teach. Our kids learn how to handle conflict by watching us, and when we use threats, we're modeling a really clear lesson, aren't we? The lesson is, when you're frustrated, you should use intimidation. When someone won't do what you want, you should scare them. It's a terrible model.
Just think about that for a second. The source material paints this really vivid picture of the future. Imagine your own grown-up kid turning this exact strategy back on you when you're older. It's a chilling thought, right? But it makes sense. If this is the main tool they see us use to get what we want, then it's going to be the tool they learn to use too.
Okay, so if threats are a dead end, what's the alternative? What are we supposed to do? Well, this is the good part. This is where we shift from the problem to the solution. And the best news is, the alternative isn't just more compassionate, it's way, way more effective.
So yeah, what do you do instead? Let's go back to that moment. Your kid is on that adrenaline carousel. You're at the playground, and you really, really need to leave. What's the move?
Okay, the new strategy is actually pretty simple in concept, though, yeah, it definitely takes practice. Basically, you have to join them on the carousel for just a second so you can help them get off. You connect with their out-of-control brain first, then you can guide them back to calm. You have to slow down together.
So let's look at a real-world example. Instead of shouting, "Turn that off now!" from across the room, you walk over, you sit down next to them, you join them, you enter their world for a second. Whoa, let's watch that last one together. What are they even doing on those skateboards? See? You're not giving in. You're building a bridge from their world back to yours. And that connection, that's the path to cooperation.
Or here's another one. Instead of just yelling, "We're leaving," at your kid who's still frantically sledding, you turn the leaving part into a game. Okay, last race down the hill. I'll bet I can get the biggest pile of snow on my boots. Go! You're using that same high energy they're already feeling and just redirecting it towards your goal. You're meeting them exactly where they are.
And I want to be super, super clear about this because it's really important. This is not permissive parenting. This is effective parenting. What you're doing is acting as the mature, regulated brain in the room. You are literally lending them your calm. You're helping their little nervous system co-regulate with yours and find its way back from being totally overwhelmed. You are actually teaching them how to slow down.
Because ultimately, this whole thing comes down to a really fundamental question about what our goal is as parents. Are we just trying to tame their behavior in this one moment? Or are we trying to teach them actual skills for life?
Because think about it, when we just demand, "Stop it now," we're not helping them process anything they're feeling. We're essentially asking them to take all that chaos, all that big energy and emotion, and just pack it into a little box and shove it down deep inside where we don't have to look at it.
And that brings us to the final question. It's the one we really need to be asking ourselves in those really tough moments. Are we teaching our kids how to manage their big, overwhelming feelings? Or are we just teaching them that those feelings are bad, unacceptable, and that they'd better hide them from us? The answer to that question, well, it really defines everything. It defines our approach now, and it'll define their future. Thanks for joining me.